Mike, we stumbled upon something thanks to one of our callers, deathbed confessionals in sports. If I said NFL deathbed confessional, who do you want to hear from to solve a mystery?
Wow. Boy, I had never really thought about that. For years, it was the whole, did Frenchie Fuqua touch the ball before it caromed into the hands of Franco Harris for the Immaculate Reception? But that was 50 years ago. Nobody cares about that anymore. I need to think that through a bit more. There's got to be something Brady and Belichick related that we'd love to know the answer to, and we may never know the answer to.
Malcolm Butler?
Possibly. There's a good one. What happened with Malcolm Butler? They'd have another ring if they had just used Malcolm Butler at all in Super Bowl 52 in Minnesota when they lost to the Eagles. That's a good one.
What do you think happened?
Something happened that pissed off Bill Belichick to the point that he made a personal decision, not a best interest of the team decision. And he wanted to send a message. He wanted to show Malcolm Butler who's boss, and ended up doing something that he believed would not cost the team the game, but that many believe cost the team the game.
All right, let's look at what's happened so far since the Super Bowl. Biggest surprise so far is what or who?
Well, based upon the way Travis Kelce was talking right after the Super Bowl, if you're that far down the road of retirement, and his comments on the New Heights podcast just a few days after the Super Bowl, man, Dan, it sounded like he was done.
Yeah.
It sounded like he was walking and he was just coming to terms with it. And in a few weeks, we'd find out that he was moving on. The fact that he so quickly decided to come back really surprised me. And I've seen some suggestion that he was ill for the Super Bowl. Of course, illnesses don't always get disclosed on the injury report, so we didn't know he was sick. But if that explains why it kind of looked at times like he was just going through the motions out there, maybe that helps justify and explain why he feels so determined to come back and go out on a higher note. Hard to get back to the Super Bowl, but with the Chiefs, they get to the AFC Championship game every year, so he may have a chance to walk off into the sunset with yet another ring.
Yeah, you get players who chase their tail because you don't want to go out that way, but there's only one team that wins the Super Bowl. Is he okay with going out by playing a really good game in a loss? That's what I would be curious about.
Yeah, and I think you're right. And it's going to be hard for the Chiefs this year. They've got a lot of work to do. The gap between them and the Eagles was made abundantly clear at the Super Bowl. So I think it's a combination of love of the sport. And look, Dan, you got the rest of your life to do whatever you're going to do next. And we know he's going to do great things. Once you stop playing, it's done, it's gone, and it's never coming back unless you're Brett Favre. But even then, at some point it ends and it's done and it's never coming back. So I can understand why he wants to keep doing the thing he loves if he feels like he can keep doing it, because for the rest of his life, once he retires, he won't be doing it.
Biggest story out of the combine was what?
Well, yeah, you mean the Thrilla in Vanilla Latte? That? Wasn't that weird? When that all happened, like, I was both dismayed by and proud of the fact that I actually did reporting to find out what happened, why it happened, who said what to whom.
Okay, give us the background on it.
Well, it was the whole Jordan Schultz of Fox, Ian Rappaport of NFL Media. They had an encounter at a Starbucks in Indy, which makes it a great coincidence because Jordan Schultz's dad was the CEO of Starbucks as it became a worldwide brand. And one guy got in the other guy's face. Some words were exchanged, words we can't say on an FCC-regulated broadcast. And NFL security was alerted. NFL security investigated. And the thing about the combine is every year it's lather, rinse, repeat, the same stuff. This guy can't work out. This guy's not working out. And then every 4 or 5 years, there's one that pops. And this is the one that popped because my wife said to me, well, number one, why do you care? And number two, why does anyone else care? It's like they just do. Things like this that are so different from the usual NFL news grind and are fascinating and bizarre and kooky. Everybody goes nuts for that.
Have you been confronted by another member of the media or a player or GM or coach?
Oh, I've been confronted verbally by several, not people in the media per se. Usually it's by text, usually coaches, players, et cetera. It's by text. But I've had an awkward encounter or two in the 20 years I've been doing this. And well, I'll leave it at that. I've had one
come
or two.
on.
It's old news. You don't care. It's been like 9 years ago. Dirk Cutter, remember Dirk Cutter, the former Buccaneers coach, at the league meetings, and I think it was in Florida that year. I had asked him a question when I interviewed him when he got the job 2 months earlier, and I never heard boo after the fact that he was upset. So me, like an idiot, I go bounding over to him like a sheepdog. Hey, Dirk, how are you? And I got the verbal uppercut about the BS question, although he didn't say BS, that I asked him, and he'll never do another interview with me. And he went on and on. Usually, I've learned that if you just take it, it peters out, and then you find a way to flip it into something positive. That's the one guy who I let him chew on me, and then when it was done, I thought maybe I can flip it. No. It didn't flip, and it was never flipped, and that's my Dirk Cutter story.
He's Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk Live co-host, and you can see that program on Peacock preceding ours. The wide receiver market here, free agency-wise, you got DK Metcalf, you got, Debo going to the Commanders, you got Davante Adams going to be out there. You got a few of these players. Why all of a sudden this flood of the market?
Well, you've got older players who have contracts that no longer match their current skills and abilities, and more importantly, what their projected skills and abilities are. And Davante Adams is no surprise. When he was traded to the Raiders 3 years ago, he did a 5-year contract with two, and this is a technical term, phony baloney back-end years that were just aimed at bumping up the average. So they can say, oh, you got $28 million a year. Yeah, but the last 2 years are $35.64 million each year. That deal was never going to go beyond year 3. And if he was going to stay with the Raiders, it would have been a major redo and restructuring. But when you're with the Jets, and he's not going to do a restructuring with the Jets, Aaron Rodgers is gone. He was always going to be cut, and now he's available. He's not going to get $35 million a year. He'll get good money. He's still got gas in the tank, and he's available to anyone who wants to get him. And all the Jets have to show for that third-round pick is 11 games during which they went 3-8, and I'm sure they'd love to get that third-round pick back and have never done that trade.
What's the market for Sam Darnold now?
Nobody really knows, because the big question is, can what Sam Darnold did last year with Kevin O'Connell drawing up the plays, with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and TJ Hawkinson catching the passes, can that be duplicated somewhere else? Or does he revert to the seeing ghosts Sam Darnold from early in his career, that Monday night game when he was with the Jets against the Patriots? So if you make a major financial investment in Darnold and you can't replicate what happened in Minnesota, you made a mistake. I mean, Darnold, and I think a lot of it had to do with how it ended, that Week 18 game that everybody saw. He got the yips at the worst possible time, biggest game of his life, and then the Vikings didn't show up across the board in the playoff game. That's the caveat now, and I think that's why the Vikings are still kind of lurking here as they figure out, do we go with Darnold where we know what the floor is, maybe the ceiling isn't as high as we'd like, or do we go with a guy that we don't know what he's going to be because he hasn't played yet, in J.J. McCarthy? And I have a feeling they're really wrestling internally. People who have been dealing with the Vikings come away with the conclusion that they don't know who's running the show and calling the shots, but they're going to have to make a decision fairly soon. They might let Darnold go out there and see what's available or what's not available, and then maybe whatever they have budgeted is kind of a lowball number. Maybe that's what he takes, and that makes the decision for them. But there is some dismay. And if he does like a 2-year deal to stay in Minnesota and the Vikings say, oh, we'll just do the Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love, J.J. McCarthy sits for 3 years, I believe that's not going to go over well with McCarthy. And the next domino could be McCarthy saying, I want out.
Let me give you this scenario. Let's say you're the Giants and you have the third pick. You could maybe sign Sam Darnold and then take Travis Hunter. Or you could go up and get Cam Ward. Now, I got Malik Neighbors, I'd have Travis Hunter, and I have Sam Darnold. We're already a whole lot better than we were last year, and I don't have to get rid of draft capital. Or I can go up, and I got to spend a little bit of draft capital to get Cam Ward, and I got a rookie contract here. What would you do?
Well, here's the problem with the Giants. You've got an owner who's decided to keep GM Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll. But the owner also said, I've just about run out of patience. So through what prism are decisions being made in New York? Is it we just got to put something together this year and get to the playoffs, and we'll worry about 2026 and 2027 when they come? Or is it we're trying to lay the foundation for a long-term contender? And this is what happens with dysfunctional teams. And I got to give the Giants credit. They've somehow won a couple of Super Bowls this century. But by and large, they're basically the same as the Jets. And there is dysfunction there. And the ultimate dysfunction is having coach and GM clearly on the hot seat and thus motivated to make short-term decisions, because long-term decisions don't help us if we're not here to see the fruits of them. That's the challenge. For the organization, the best long-term approach is stabilize the quarterback position for years to come. The worst long-term approach is to grab the short-term shiny object like Aaron Rodgers and try to put a playoff run together. And then next year, it's like, what do we do? I don't know. That's not good for the Giants over the long haul.
You and Chris Sims talked to Shedeur Sanders, 5 days ago at the Combine? What was your takeaway after the conversation?
Great personality, magnetic. You can see that his dad is Deion Sanders, very worldly, kind of mature beyond his years, knows how to deal with people very well, a lot of emotional intelligence. I was impressed with him, but I knew it was going to happen. The chatter's already begun. And I think the chatter stems from one very simple fact. When we had Deion Sanders at the Super Bowl, I pressed him on this question of, are you ever interested in coaching in the NFL? Because he's given different answers over the past couple of years about that. And he told us the only way he would ever coach in the NFL is if he was coaching his son. That creates, for some coaches, I think, a hesitation to ever sign off on your team drafting Shedeur Sanders, because you might be signing your own pink slip because Deion ends up being the coach of the team that Shedeur Sanders goes to. At least that's one of the concerns that one of these coaches would have. So I think that's where some of this noise is coming from. You've got coaches who are thinking, wait a minute, I don't want to have Deion Sanders hovering over me if we have his son as our quarterback. And I think the 4D chess that Deion might be playing here, by saying what he said, you scare away the coaches of the dysfunctional teams, the coaches who would be worried about outside noise from Deion, and maybe you engineer a little slide down to a team where it is stable, it isn't dysfunctional, and the coach is sufficiently secure and confident that he's not worried about the possibility that Deion Sanders would want to become the coach of the team that his son's playing for. So it could work out well for Shedeur. The noise that's going to start, and it's already started, it could cause him to drop, but he could drop into a good spot, not a team with a history of derailing the careers of young quarterbacks.
Paulie and I have a pie to the face bet. Shedeur Sanders, over under, first 5.5 picks.
Wow. I would say at this point, he will, and I don't know what over or under is. I guess it's over. I think that his window opens with the Raiders at 6.
Okay. Don't you owe us a pie to the face, Mike?
I think I owe you a couple. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
And I was hoping you'd gotten.
I know you don't want to hurt the hair, but I mean, at some point,
I don't want to knock off the toupee.
Your hair looks great.
Thank you.
Just like Tom Brady's.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mine's real. I don't know about his. Mine's real. My wife says from time to time, you should just shave your head so everyone can see it's not a toupee. I am afraid of two things. Number one, it might not grow back. And number two, Dan, I am afraid that my head is misshapen, and I don't want to find out, along with the rest of the world, that it is.
Not everybody looks like Michael Jordan with their head shaved.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Remember, Scottie Pippen, I think, had his head shaved one time, and I was like, nope. Are you going to be at the draft in Green Bay?
Yeah, I haven't been to the draft since the last time it was in New York. It's so much easier to work it from home because the only people at the draft are the people who run the cards to the podium. Now the players are there, but it had gotten harder and harder to get good access to them for interviews and stuff ahead of time. And we just do Zoom interviews with them. And I do it all from here. I go down to the barn and we do videos after every pick, and it's much more effective here.
Great to talk to you. Once again, all three of Mike's novels, Father of Mine, Son of Mine, and On Our Way Home, just 99-cent ebooks on Amazon. Thank you, Michael.